All set.
Hi friends, welcome to week 9 of Shredder Adventure series. For those of you who are joining us for the first time this week, the idea of this series is for all of you to get a chance to speak to and ask questions of inspirational female athletes and adventurers, cyclists, hikers, runners, climbers, mountaineers, women who have spent some time or all of their lives adventuring in the outdoors. By the time April rolls around, we will have spoken to 3 past Olympians spanning 8 different Olympic Games, 2 future 2021 Tokyo Olympians, 2 world champions, and 7 U.S. national champions, including Maddie, in different cycling disciplines. I hope you're all inspired to continue asking these incredible athletes questions about their career paths and their training plans, their snacking regimens, etc. Feel free to invite your friends and family to enjoy these chats. As always, we will start out the call with a little bit of Zoom admin. My mom will be letting folks into this call through the waiting room and also hanging out in the chat room to take all your questions. This call is all about us girls being able to ask this week's guest, Maddie, questions about her life as a college student and professional cyclist. You can ask about what it's like to live in the mountains of Colorado, what it's like to be a college student during COVID, what it's like to race at college and at an international level in cycling, anything. So feel free to raise your hand when you have a question and my mom will call on you to unmute yourself or have an adult write a question in the chat box that we can ask Maddie if you prefer that. So without further ado, I introduce you to Maddie Munro.
Thank you, Anne-Sophie. Well done. So I don't actually know a whole lot about Maddie, so I'll let her further introduce herself in a bit. But I will tell you what I do know, all of which is extremely impressive for anyone, never mind someone who is only 18 years old. So Maddie is 18, so just a few years off of most of you girls in terms of age. Maddie's originally from Boulder, Colorado. She initially trained and raced for the Boulder junior cycling team before going pro more recently with Trek Factory Racing. She had an incredible junior career in cyclocross, becoming the U19 Pan American and USA national champion in 2019. In 2020, Maddie won a bronze medal at the U19 World Championships in Dubendorf, Switzerland. She's now starting her U23 career and started it off with a bang by joining the Trek Factory Racing team toward the end of 2020. And those kiddos and adults on the call that are familiar with bike racing, you will know and be familiar that the fact that Trek Factory Racing team is a historically super successful race team that currently includes Katie Compton, the 15-time elite cyclocross US national champion, Yolanda Neff from Switzerland, who is a world champion and World Cup champion in cross-country mountain biking, and Evie Richards from the UK, who is a 2 times U23 world cyclocross champion and 2 times elite mountain bike World Cup champion. Maddie joined Trek Factory Racing team at the end of 2020 and promptly headed straight over to Europe for the 2021 cyclocross season. Racing for Team USA, she raced the Elite World Cup season, including the Elite World Championships in Belgium against the best female cyclocross athletes in the world. Girls, we've watched a few cyclocross clips from Speaking with Katarina Nash and a few others, and you will have remembered that there are a lot of orange jerseys in those cyclocross racing videos. The Dutch and the Belgian women are really dominant in these international events. Traditionally, as far as I understand, American women have not performed exceptionally well at an international level at cyclocross events, but it seems like we're turning a little bit of a corner with amazing young women like yourself, Maddie, and Clara Hansiger, for example, crushing it on the international scene these days. Maddie's a freshman at, at Colorado Mesa College in Grand Junction, Colorado, and she's racing for her college team in the disciplines of cyclocross, mountain biking, and possibly road biking, I think, in the spring. Maddie, we're super excited to have you here today to speak with the girls about your career and what it's like to be such a young and successful cyclist. I was wondering if you could introduce yourself a little bit further and maybe correct any mistakes that I made in my introduction, and then tell the girls how you got into cycling and what it's like growing up in the mountains of Colorado.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you all so much for having me and joining this call. I'm super excited to be here and can't wait to get to talk to all of you and hopefully answer some questions. It feels like not too long ago, I was your guys' age, just getting started with bike racing as well and getting into riding. So I think that was a pretty good introduction. Thank you. That covered a lot of bases. I kind of got started cycling. There's a local program in my hometown, Boulder, Colorado, called SIMBA, which stands for Single Track Mountain Bike Adventures. And I would go to summer camp there. I went for about 4 years, and we would just we would ride all day in different parts of Boulder and the surrounding mountain areas. And we would just do these big epic rides, some days small rides too. But I made a lot of really good friends through the program, and it's sort of what sparked my interest in mountain biking and got me into racing. And then eventually I started racing cyclocross as well. So I've always had a special place in my heart for mountain biking because it's where I started riding. And yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you. And I wondered if maybe we could start, if you wouldn't mind me putting you more on the spot, and
No
we
worries.
can show the video of you winning, as a spoiler alert, you winning the, I think it's the U19 National Championships in 2019. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah. And so, girls, as you remember from watching the videos of Katerina Nash, right? You'll remember the sport of, maybe actually one of you could raise your hands and explain the sport of cyclocross to others that may not be comfortable or remember what it might be. Does anybody remember and can explain the difference from cyclocross to other biking disciplines? I see Lily's hand up and Emma and Liddy's hands. Couple people want to answer. Okay, let me call on Emma and Liddy first. Okay, what do you think, girls?
Well, I think the difference between cyclocross and mountain biking is like, because you're on skinny wheels and you go like on mud and stuff. Mountain bike is sort of the same, that they go in mountain bike in mud, but the tires are sort of different, and like in races they do it a different way.
That was amazing. Well done.
Great job.
Well done. Lily, can you add anything to that?
Thank you.
Well, it's basically what they said with like the different bikes and stuff, but you usually tend to do more laps. And with like cyclocross and mountain biking, it's just usually like this one long race course and you don't lap it. But it's basically with steep hills where you need to like get off your bike and run up, and like that's why the bikes need to be like really light, and then there's like barriers where you need to carry your bike over them and jump them.
Awesome. Thanks, Lily. Yeah, that was
exactly.
great. And actually, just a slight correction, Lily, just so you're aware that mountain biking races actually do have a lap course to them. They're just a lot longer of a lap. But you're right, the cyclocross laps are really short, and so it makes for a really fun spectator sport that way too, because you can see all different vantage points from like standing in one place. You can see action across a lot of the course of people getting on and off their bikes. So I'm going to show you. Let's see if we can figure this out. We're going to share a screen and share sound and optimize a video clip. We're going to watch the beginning of the, let's see, where am I? Cyclocross. The beginning of the race, and then we're going to skip forward. This race, remind me how many laps it was, Maddie? Was it 5 or 6?
I want to say actually 4, maybe.
Okay. So they will start here on the road. Like can you see my screen, by the way?
Yeah,
okay.
I can.
They'll start here on the road, and then they'll make 4 laps and go through this same spot 4 different times. And through that lap, they will have to get on and off their bikes a couple of times to run up and jump over barriers. And then Maddie will finish across this finish line here. So I'll skip ahead after we see the start line. But if you want to commentate or just jump in wherever, I can always pause. So I'll go ahead and maximize and start. We'll see the beginning.
So she knows how to handle her bike. I think her next number 2 ranked rider today will be Lizzie Gonzalez, who's also finished really strong this year.
You know what? I think they just started speaking about you.
She was mountain bike world championships And so she knows how to handle her bike. I think her next number 2 ranked rider today will be Lizzie Gonzalez, who's also finished really strong this year. Finished second, 3 Pan Am champs. So
Oh, just missed it.
It's okay.
Sorry, I should say, this is Matt. Can you see my mouse? This is
Yeah.
Maddie here, all the way on the right in white. She has a white helmet and she has a white top. And do you have stripes on too? I don't think you have stripes.
Yeah, there's like some little rainbow stripes, but they're kind of hard to see.
Okay, so she's the only one with like a white jersey here. So as we progress, just look out for her in white.
Yeah, one thing I will say, just as we look at the start here, I think Meredith had it right. Maddie Munro is going to be the rider to watch here. When we saw them, they're getting a little close there in the start. When we saw them at the Pan Am National Championship, she started 30 seconds behind in the 17 and 18, made her way to second place overall in the U23. So a true talent there. Lizzie Gonzalez, also amazing ride there as well.
Yeah, so Lauren Zerner taking the whole shot here. I am not surprised. She will do that in every single race. She does it back in Boulder. She's already got a big gap. That's Cassidy Hickey following her right now from, well, her team is unattached, but she's wearing a 2020 kit. So I think we've got a lot of strong riders up here at the front end of the field right now.
Cassie Hickey coming from triathlon, so getting on and off the bike, something she knows. Running is something that she knows, and she's really sort of.
Okay, so I'm going to skip ahead. We saw her start, and then you're doing 3-4 laps at this point, and I'm going to go ahead to 140.
Able to get over that, recompose, and right back in the hunt, you know, in that 4th, 5th, 6th place.
So this is the final lap, girls.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about, you know, when riders make mistakes out here, are they able to get back to the groove again? And I think we saw, you know, Nick Carter make that first mistake going through the tape last race, and later on in the lap, or maybe the next lap, you know, making another mistake again. Was that because he just hadn't, you know, gotten his composure again, you know, but come on, Maddie, you did it.
Yeah, there's usually some sand riding in these cross races, or running if you can't ride all the way through it.
It's like hard work.
Right.
Yeah, she can afford to get off and re-rake that sand pit and still hold on for the win here. And Munro did the work early. She definitely put in the gap that she needed to early on in this race. Back up to second place on the way down. Almost into a tuck on the cross race.
Well, we've been talking about how fast this section is, and again, going back to the junior men's race, I mean, that was a tactical part of the course because they wanted to lead through that section. So that
lots of steep run-ups in this course too.
Through the next technical descents.
Really great. We see the sportsmanship here once again.
Did you try and ride up that at some point, or that's always
this one? Yeah, I think this one was a run every time. I don't think anyone could ride up it.
Oh.
And you know, it's important. I mean,
and then this was a really steep descent, so it's pretty technical.
Slippery.
Yeah, it was.
Have a fair race, and so to be able to step off the course like that and give the leader of the race first space is, I really appreciate that camaraderie.
That's Cassie Hickey.
Which lap did you start to have quite a gap where you felt like you were ahead of the rest of the group?
I think it was on the beginning of the second lap.
Wow, that's amazing.
I really liked this course too. It was super fun.
Where was this?
It was in Tacoma, Washington.
This was the big one, and it looks like she's going to take it to the.
Yeah, so I'd never raced here before ever, but it was a really cool venue. I really enjoyed it.
She'll come onto the pavement.
Hey.
Another Pan Am champion in a national championship here in Lakewood. She comes onto the pavement. Crowd greeting her at the line. And Maddie Munro will wear.
Oh my gosh, chills.
I know, it makes me excited for racing just watching it.
She absolutely nailed it. see the other BJC kids waiting to greet her at the finish.
That is awesome. Oh my gosh, Maddie, congratulations.
Thank you.
Ugh, that is wild. So you were 17 then for that race?
Yeah, I was.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Let me see here. Okay, we're back in. Yeah, so that was really cool to see that race, and interesting was there quite a bit of kind of jostling and movement and aggressiveness towards the beginning of the race before you had gotten clear of everybody?
Yeah, I think that initial, like, I don't know if you could see, there's a run up right at the beginning where I was kind of like, I didn't have the best start, I guess. So I was a little bit farther back and just kind of trying to move my way through the girls. At the beginning was a little bit tricky, but after that, it cleared up pretty quick.
And that is a big win. Did that kind of cement to you the fact that you like really wanted to stick with this sport in general, that you wanted to turn professional? How did you make that transition from racing as a junior into pro?
I think racing from a junior into pro, it was kind of like a culmination of a bunch of races. I think I feel like my first trip to Europe, the year before that, actually, for cyclocross, like my first cyclocross worlds, I think that was what really made me want to go pro and realize like I really want to pursue this and keep doing trips like this to Europe and go to these big races. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. Where was the first trip to Europe? Was that a Belgian Dutch trip?
We went to Denmark for World Championships. We did one World Cup before in the Netherlands the weekend before Worlds, but most of it was in Denmark.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Lily, you have a question.
Who inspired you to become a racer and do cycling and bike?
Yeah, that's a really good question. There's a couple that have been, since I've started, really inspiring to me. I think Kate Courtney was actually one of my most inspiring and one of the people that really made me want to get into it, because I saw her as, oh, she's an American as well, and she's not that much older than me. Also went to college and then started racing on the World Cup circuit. So she was super inspiring. And after I kind of got into it, I saw other racers like Yolanda Neff, who I also really look up to, and just how amazing she is as well. Yeah.
And then you got to race with or get to be on her team. That's crazy. What was that like?
It was great. Oh my gosh. Well, I went to a World Cup race this past fall before Mountain Bike Worlds, and I actually had the chance to room with her. So we were sharing a room, and I just remember I called my parents like the first day and was kind of in such shock, like, you will never believe who I'm staying with, like, and the whole time just told myself, okay, you have to just act cool, like, don't do anything silly, because there's this big time pro rider right here. So
I'm sure she was very welcoming of you.
Oh, she was amazing. Yes. She's so kind and has such a positive energy. Like, yeah, I was super lucky.
It seems like that the women's circuit just seems so encouraging that way. And I'm sure there are many dynamics that we don't know about or we don't see on the screen or anything. But what's that like at the high school level as well? What's the kind of camaraderie and the start line situation?
Yeah.
And is it very? I saw a girl dancing at the start line on right at the start of the national championships.
Yeah.
Is that common?
Yeah. I'd say actually, like, especially high school racing, the Colorado League that I raced for all 4 years of high school was super positive and really encouraging, and just such a good time every race. Like, people would be serious about racing, but really at the start line, at the finish, everyone's cheering for each other, talking to each other, giving out high fives. Like, it's super relaxed and very motivating and a positive experience. And I think that's generally pretty true for most of the races I've done in the US with girls my age. Like, they all have that kind of same really encouraging and positive vibe. So
that's great to hear. Sophia, you have a question.
I was wondering, like, what's your favorite thing to ride over in cyclocross, like sand, mud, like?
Oh, I really like the technical stuff. So like those really, if there's like a really steep, muddy descent or something, that's probably my favorite.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is your training mostly is it mostly on the road, or the girls may or may not know that you generally, I mean, you train for cyclocross, but you're not necessarily doing the cyclocross laps throughout the week. You know, you're doing your technical training and your endurance skills. What bike do you spend the most time on, I guess?
That's a good question. So it varies based on the season, right? So like cyclocross season, I do a mix of road riding and cyclocross practices. So like I'll do lots of longer rides on my road bike, like 2 or 3 hours maybe on the weekend, just kind of building up miles. And then during the week, I'll go out on my cross bike, and sometimes like my coach and teammates and I, we'd go to the park and we'd make a little cross course in the park, and we'd do some really fast laps around that like to get some hard efforts in there. We'd put in little like sticks or something, or cones for barriers, and then try and find like some sandy sections or something like that to try and make it like a race course. So
that sounds super fun. You're basically making your own kind of playground and
exactly
obstacles to jump over.
Exactly.
That's great. Zoe, you had a question. Would you like to ask your question?
What places do you like normally race?
Oh, another good one. So I've kind of been racing all over, like in Europe, a lot of cyclocross races happen over there. So there's like in Belgium is where most of the European cyclocross races happen. But when I'm in the States, like in the US, I'll do a lot of mountain bike races. There's some good ones in Colorado, which are close to home for me. And then we'll also kind of travel to a mix of different states. Like there's one big race in Utah, one in Montana. There's a big mountain bike race coming up in South America, in Puerto Rico. But yeah, it can be really all over the place, which is pretty cool about the sport.
Thank you.
And you know what, Zoe, your grandparents live in Belgium. And so next time you go to Belgium, maybe you should figure out, we should figure out where you could visit to possibly spectate a cyclocross race.
That would be amazing. Yeah.
Are they ever close to Brussels, or are they kind of all over?
Yeah, actually they are. Like normally we fly into Brussels and we stay about an hour from Brussels. So they're all, I'd say, within driving distance, not too bad.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Field trip to Brussels.
Oh my gosh, yes.
We could cheer you on.
So exciting.
Cool. And I think Lily has a question.
What's your training like for like the week? Like how many hours do you have?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I don't have a lot of hours. Normally I'll ride between like, I'd say 10 to 12 hours a week. And normally that's like, I have 2 hard days midweek. So like maybe I'll go out on a Tuesday and a Thursday and do my intervals. And I'll also go to the gym those days as well to get some lifting in. And then I'll have like Wednesdays and Fridays are usually easy rides or recovery days. And then the weekends I'll do some more big rides. So we'll do like a team group ride here, or I'll just do like some endurance rides with my close friends or other teammates who are around. And those can be anywhere from like 3 to 5 hours at the most, but normally like 3 hours is a big ride. So, and that will be like Saturday and Sunday.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And in line with that was a great question, Lily. And I'm curious, since you are so young, is your volume of training a little bit less than your elite counterparts that are on the team?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is a coach that accommodates for junior riders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my coach, Pete Weber, he actually runs the club team that I used to be on called Boulder Junior Cycling. He like runs that whole program, and I've been coached by him for like ever since I started racing, pretty much. So the past 3-ish years. And yeah, we don't do a ton of high volume right now, just so I don't get too burnt out or too tired with training. I definitely have a smaller volume of hours.
Awesome. And then, so you're doing U23 this coming season, correct? That will be your kind of age group that you're competing in. But you did just compete. You were in the elite division for the World Cup season. What was the rationale behind that?
So, well, cyclocross, they actually, for all the World Cups, they don't have a separate U23 category,
Oh, okay.
only for like scoring and points. So we'll all race with the elite women and then get scored separately from them.
I see.
But then mountain biking, luckily, there is a U23 category. So this summer, like if I'll do some World Cup races and we'll have our own U23 race.
That must add a different dynamic to it, right? So, I mean, I assume
Definitely.
you all know each other, right? Even in the elite races for cyclocross, but at the same time, you're in the mix with all the elite women and the U23 women, and you have to also keep an eye on and remember, well, actually, I'm not competing really against the elite ones. I'm competing with U23s. Is that tricky to kind of remember and keep track of, or are you just so in the zone, you're just going for gold no matter who you're going against?
Well, I guess I'd say it's not super hard to keep track of. Sometimes they'll even do different colored number plates for us.
Gotcha.
But I think like, yeah, we kind of, at this point, I sort of know everyone that's racing. And so I think I can really be like, oh, I know who that is. Like that's Lucinda Brand, or that's like another U23 rider. And I can kind of gauge it like that. But then, yeah, at the end of the day, I think I just I want to get the best result that I can. So like even within the elite women. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I'm curious about that dynamic between the European racers, like the Belgian and the Dutch racers, right, who are incredible. And they've traditionally, had such a long reign of success in the World Cup scene, right? Like, what's it like being an American in the bunch? And, Claire obviously has done very well in the elite level this year, but is there kind of some buzz around the American female cyclocross athletes coming into Europe now?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I'd say in the past, yeah, it's very different for an American to go over to Europe. The racing over there is much different, and they are much more aggressive, I think, over in Europe. And there's just a much bigger depth of competition over there than in the US. And so generally it's more difficult, I'd say, for an American to just jump right into that racing environment. It feels kind of like a shock to your system, like how different it is. But I'd say, watching Clara and seeing her have this success is really inspiring, and kind of like, look, Americans can race really fast. And even in like people like Katie Compton, who have done really well in the past as well. Like, I think it's growing, and I'm hoping we can get more Americans in the mix and keep adding more people into the races that can do well. So,
and that's the thing. I think you brought up a good point about they really, they're doing so well, not because yes, they're training a lot, right? But they have so many to choose from, because so many cyclists in Europe are choosing to ride cyclocross at a young age and choose to race cyclocross at a young age. So the base number of women that they have to choose from to make the national team is much broader than what we have in the US, where possibly historically women have chosen to road race or to cross-country mountain bike race. But the more we have of young girls that are choosing to race these different disciplines, then the higher the level will be, right, for the sport in this country. So it's girls like you. If you choose girls to race cyclocross, then as you get older, the sport itself will be bigger and bigger, and it'll be more competitive and exciting to be a part of.
For sure. All
right, we have lots of questions. This is great. So,
I love it.
Sophie, what's your question, my love?
So I know you're in college. So what subjects do you study in college?
Yeah, good question. So I'm actually majoring in biology right now. Math and science are like my favorite subjects. So Awesome.
And maybe to continue on that, how is that in terms of balancing? I know, because Anne-Sophie and I were also speaking earlier about how you were, racing at a national level as a high schooler too. How does that balance work with being a high school successful athlete and academic, and then college as well? Have to shift that balance a little bit?
Yeah, I'd say high school and college have they've felt different in managing. Like high school did have there was a high workload for me. So I would miss a lot of stuff and have to, be doing a lot of homework and studying while I was abroad. But that being said, I think I built some pretty good relationships with my teachers, and they were super understanding. So they would generally help me out a lot and make sure I had the right work I needed to get done while I was gone, and how to make stuff up. Coming to college was a bit different, especially with COVID, because a lot of my classes actually have been like shortened, or we only go twice a week instead of 4 times a week because they have to split the class in half due to like how many kids can be in the classroom at a time. They can only have like half capacity. And with COVID, everything has been made available to do online in case kids actually do get sick. So when I traveled abroad, like I was able to do a lot of my work remotely, which was super helpful, and still just working with my professors and they would help me out. And if there's stuff I need to make up when I get back, I would just do that when I returned home. So it's hard to balance sometimes, but it's also kind of something like I'm really motivated and dedicated to my sport. And also like I do enjoy being at school and want to pursue this degree in biology. So I know it's something I want to put effort into doing.
And have you thought as far ahead as after college and after your cycling career, where the degree might take you?
Yeah, I think it's a bit ambitious, but I've really wanted to work in the medical field at some point. So I think possibly after cycling, if it presents itself and I can go back to school, I'd love to go to med school and do something with that.
Oh, that's so impressive.
Yeah.
I love that. Love it.
Thank you.
Emma and Liddy, I have a question. Are you there, girls? Emma and Liddy?
Yeah, sorry. Where do you go to college?
I go to a school called Colorado Mesa, and it's in Grand Junction, Colorado. So it's like a pretty deserty place down here. It's warm, not a lot of trees.
That's cool.
Have you been to Colorado, girls?
No.
No.
It's a cool place. If you get the chance, you should come visit. It's pretty fun.
Wait, did you count the trees?
I can't count them, but I bet if I did, they definitely wouldn't be that many. There's a lot more rocks though. Probably like millions.
Okay, so you didn't count the rocks.
Yeah.
And are you at elevation, Maddie? How high are you there?
Yeah, we're at like 490 maybe, or 5. Yeah.
Okay, so you're not very high.
Not super high, no.
No. Okay. Yeah. Do you do some elevation training out there? I mean, obviously Colorado has a lot of elevation in the state, but
yeah. Well, before I came to college, like my family, we'd usually take a trip to the mountains for a month over the summer. And that was like 7,000, and you could ride up at almost like 9,000 feet. So I do a month where like we'd have a lot of riding at elevation there. And yeah, we'll drive up to the mountains every once in a while to go ride or have a race or something.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Sophia and then Lily.
I was wondering, has your like college racing been different this year due to COVID?
Yeah, definitely. We've actually, our collegiate mountain bike season, which was supposed to be in the fall, we only did one race last fall, and it was us and one other school competing. And we were supposed to have a full mountain bike season with like a national championships and everything, but all of it got canceled because of COVID. And we're still waiting to see if we're going to be able to do some road racing in the spring. We have a couple on the calendar coming up in March and April, but those could change too. So we'll see if those happen. But yeah, we haven't really had a full mountain bike collegiate or road collegiate season, unfortunately.
And what are all the disciplines that are offered at your college for collegiate racing?
There's actually
at every college.
Yeah, there's quite a few. So there's mountain, cyclocross, road, BMX, downhill, and enduro. Pretty much everything they have here. Yeah.
Are you tempted to try those other disciplines while you're at college?
Not so much. Maybe like, an occasional downhill race or something like to try, but I think I'll stick with the ones I know for now.
That's great.
Yeah.
Lily.
I have 2 questions. So
go for it.
Biggest competition.
My biggest competition?
Like a person or a race?
Yeah, person or race?
Lily. Did you mean a competitor, another woman that she's racing it? The race? Okay.
A race,
Yeah.
Biggest race. I'd say probably a World Championships have been like in cyclocross or mountain biking. Those are the biggest ones, I think.
And also, what does your year look like with COVID? Like, what did last year look like with your training?
Yeah, good question. So when COVID started last spring is when everything kind of started getting canceled. And that was the beginning of what was supposed to be my mountain bike season. So basically all summer we did really no mountain bike races. I think we did maybe 1 or 2 local ones. But basically it was all just training and riding for fun. I still did train and tried to, keep my race shape in case anything did come up and we were able to race. But then I came into college in the fall, and again, we still didn't really have a lot of races on the calendar. So it was just more training and riding, getting to know the trails here at my school, because I've never ridden out here before until I moved here for school. And then it wasn't really till cyclocross season when we started to actually see some races on the calendar. And I found out that I was able to go to Europe in the future for the cyclocross world championships and a bunch of World Cup racing. So that's when I really started my cyclocross training. Like how I mentioned before, like a couple hard days a week and then some endurance rides on the weekend. And then I got to travel to Europe, and that's where the bulk of my races were. I spent almost 2 months in Europe and did like 11 races total. And honestly, that was the majority of my cyclocross season was over there racing. Yeah.
Thank you.
And what's it like being an international athlete that way? Like, do you have a cook? Do you have someone who takes care of you? Like, are you bussed around all together as a team? What is it like?
Yeah. So it's been a little different this year since I recently signed with Trek. This was my first trip with Trek for cross. And so when we went, my teammates and I, like Evie and Hattie, we stayed in a house together most of the time. And usually we have a soigneur who like gives us massages and, helps us cook every once in a while, like helps us cook if there's not a cook there. And then like also just helping us get ready for races and driving us places and stuff like that. And then there's usually a couple of staff members there and some mechanics. And then the past 2 years before I was on Trek, I would go with USA Cycling, and they have, luckily for cyclocross, there's this thing called the Mud Fund. So that's what supported most of us athletes. And we all stayed in this one big house together in the Netherlands. It's the Team USA Cycling house. And there's a cook and a soigneur for the men and women who will like give you massages and stuff. And so, yeah, all of our dinners were made and other meals. And then, yeah, we would travel together in like team vans.
That's cool. What's the difference between traveling with, from your perspective, the difference between traveling with Team USA and Team Trek in terms of the dynamics and traveling with international racers versus your own national teammates?
Yeah. Well, I'd say with Trek, one of the things is since the cross team is much smaller than the number of USA athletes that usually get brought over on a trip, it just feels like a little bit more personal and like a lot more staff per rider, if that makes sense. So like we had 3 riders and 3 mechanics on the Trek team, whereas USA Cycling, there's like 6 or 7 juniors and U23 riders. So there's just more people. And then the other difference I'd say is with Trek, I'm the youngest one. So I definitely kind of feel like I'm the youngest rider, and I'm with much more like experienced riders and these pro riders. Whereas with USA Cycling, I get to spend time with juniors who are my age and other U23 riders. So it's a little bit more relatable to be with those athletes, but still both really fun, just in different ways.
Yeah, and with Trek, I mean, these are, they've already proved themselves in terms of being very high level elite athletes. And are you training together and expected to stay, at the same training volume as they are throughout your race season, or do you do your own training on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, good question. No, normally I do my own training, and just because we all have our own coaches still, so we all kind of are following different training plans. But that being said, sometimes our rides would line up, and like we'd all go out for a ride together, and we might have our separate intervals or something, but we could all leave the house together, go on the same route, and then come home together. So we did get to ride occasionally, which was nice.
Lily just had a hilarious comment. Can I say it, Lily?
Oh.
Or why don't you unmute yourself?
Could we have a house and cook for shredders?
Yes.
We'll have to
That's a
work on
great
that, Lily.
idea.
We'll have to do a lot of bake sales.
Ooh,
to raise money for that, to have our own soignier.
Yes.
and
Good
a house
idea.
just for shredders. We're getting there for sure with our support.
That would be so much fun. A girl's house, like you'd have a blast.
Totally. Zoe. I think Zoe had a question. Zoe, do you want to ask your question?
What state did you start mountain biking or biking?
What state did I start mountain biking in? Is that what your question was? Yeah. I started here in Colorado. I grew up in Boulder, Colorado, and that's where I started riding mountain bikes. And then only recently, this year, is when I moved to Grand Junction, which is only about 4 hours away from Boulder. So I've stayed in Colorado my whole life, pretty much.
And it's interesting to hear how varied the terrain. I'm a geologist, so I'm always interested in the geology of areas. And it's interesting. I always think of Boulder as being so high up in the mountains, right? But then the fact that you're right now in the desert at 450 feet elevation, it's really, there's so much variety out there.
Yeah.
I have a question about the Olympics. So my question is that, we've spoken to a couple of Olympians, and it's very odd to have this weird perspective where we can actually ask athletes like yourself, is your dream to be at the Olympics? And that is an actual, a thing that you can actually aspire to. It's not just a pipe dream, right? So what are your thoughts on the Olympics? I know cyclocross is not, girls, so cyclocross is not an Olympic sport. For cycling, it's just mountain biking. It's cross-country mountain biking, track cycling, but not downhill or anything, right?
No, I don't think there's downhill.
Yeah, BMX.
Yeah. I think they added BMX, actually.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on, I mean, for this summer already, are you thinking about a team, or would it be 4 years from now? Or?
Yeah, I'm my long-term dream goal is to go to the Olympics, yes. But however, I don't think Tokyo is really realistic for me, just because I'm so young still. So I think more Paris 2024 maybe.
Yay!
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And do you know what that build is like for the next 4 years then? Will you be kind of slotted into the training regime to build up for that after
I mean, yeah, like my goals will be, to do as well as I can to progress to that level. And then I think eventually start to work with the other USA women that are in contention to go to the Olympics possibly, and trying to get as many points as we can so we can get as many spots for the US girls to go, because I think the US can take a maximum of 3 women if they score enough points throughout the season. So that will probably be a big goal of ours, is to do as well as we can leading up to the Olympics to get more points, if that makes sense.
That's got to be such an interesting dynamic, right? Like you're in competition with each other as American teammates to do the best you can in every race, but then as a country team, you're really trying to do as best you can against the other countries to allow yourselves to have more slots for the Olympics.
Exactly.
And it's been an interest. I've been watching, Leah and Aaron Huck and all those folks to do that. And it's an interesting dynamic. So I'm curious how that,
it is.
And does it depend on how they do this summer as well? Or is it?
I don't think, not for Tokyo. I think they've secured the 3 spots for Tokyo. Yeah.
And if you are doing that, and presumably then that would be in mountain biking, not in cyclocross, will you back off of the cyclocross over the next few years, or not necessarily?
Ideally, I wouldn't want to back off, just because I think cyclocross, there's lots of parts of it that can translate to mountain biking. And also, I think I really enjoy racing both, and don't really want to have to choose one right now. So hopefully I'll be able to still compete in both, but again, we'll kind of have to see, I guess, how it plays out and what the racing calendars look like and how much is realistic or not to do.
Yeah, we've been enjoying listening to the different athletes like yourself that excel in more than one cycling discipline, and how they really suit each other, and they enhance the skills of the other sport throughout. So I've been fascinated by that, and how you can be so successful at both of those sports, and that those sports benefit each other. So.
Yeah.
Lily, you have a question.
What did you think? Like, did you think that you were going to be you would have a possible shot at the Olympics in 2024? Like, what did you think when you started riding cyclocross and the bike?
Ooh. Yeah, I don't think when I started racing, like mountain biking and cross, I don't think I had really even thought about the Olympics or even like a World Cup race. I was, having so much fun doing it. And then I think it wasn't really until I started racing in high school and did a couple races where I actually traveled to races. Like I went to Utah and I went to a race in Montana, and then I kind of started to think, okay, I really like this. Like maybe I could be good enough at it to really go somewhere and make these big dream goals of going to the Olympics. That's when I think it started crossed my mind, and I really started to follow athletes like Kate Courtney and see what they were doing, and that motivated me as well. So
thank you.
Yeah.
And were there a lot of girls competing when you were at the high school level? Were there a lot of girls competing on the start line with you?
There was a good amount. Yeah. I mean, my team in Boulder was one of the biggest ones. We had like 100 kids on the team, and probably like 40 of them were girls.
That's
so
fantastic.
Yeah, there was a good amount for sure.
And I don't know, but I feel like that's pretty unusual. So I think you were you were very lucky to be part, or not lucky, you enabled yourself to be part of that. But that's fantastic.
It's definitely growing too, which is great to see.
That's good.
More girls on bikes.
Awesome. So Zoe asked if we're going to see the rest of the video. You and I can watch it after this, Zoe, if you would like to.
Yeah.
And girls, I can send that. I can send that video to the Facebook page, so you can watch more. You can watch the entire race if you like. And I I think that particular reel has all of the ages, like
7 hours of film.
7 hours of film. So you could really watch it all. But when I post it on the Facebook page, I'll just say when, the section that Maddie's in, so you can watch the whole race if you like, because it's only 40 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Not super long, and it's that sport is just, it's so fun to watch, like
it's crazy.
By now, and there's always so much action, and Maddie was so successful in that race that we didn't get to see much action, because by the end, that last lap, she was so far ahead of everybody else that there wasn't a lot of bumping and falling and running over people. So but normally there is, although in a junior race, is it less so, or was that unique in that particular race that you were able to gap so far?
I'd say it kind of just depends. Like in Europe, that would not happen. I don't think. Like it's very like lots of bumping and people everywhere. I think it just depends on the race though. In the US, sometimes like it can be a really close race, and sometimes people just go off the front. So
what's that like? Do you get a little bit anxious when, like, are there actually elbows when you're running up the hills and things in Europe? Like,
sometimes.
What's that like to your psyche while you're racing?
Yeah, I think you honestly, I try and just sort of block it out and think, okay, I'm just here to race. Like you got to put your elbows right back out. Like if people are elbowing you, and hold your line and really stay strong in that sense, and then just keep going. Yeah.
It's interesting, because I played a sport where it was ultimate frisbee, where in America it was much more aggressive than the European way of playing. So it was the opposite in terms of the aggressiveness and physicality of the sport
Oh, that
between
is
the two
interesting.
continents. So when I came over to play in Europe, I played for 8 years over there while I was doing my PhD. And I had to teach our British national team how to be more aggressive. And so that once we faced the Americans at the World Championships, that we could kind of pretend that we were fierce, that we could pretend that we were aggressive when that really wasn't their natural way, was to be that aggressive. So it's just interesting to hear you from the opposite perspective with cyclocross, that, you know, the European women are so aggressive that way, and that you kind of have to step up or you get kind of pushed out of the way, right? That's hard to learn, that, I would think.
Totally.
Any other questions, girls? Oh, I like your glasses, Anne-Sophie.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions you can ask Maddie before we let her go? So Lily has another one. I love it.
Yeah.
What you got, Lil?
I just want to say thank you for coming on to Shutters.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been so fun to get to talk to you guys, and I hope I could answer some of your questions.
It was wonderful, and it's so. Oops, Olivia has a question. Go for it, Olivia.
Oh, perfect.
What inspired you for cycling versus other sports that are out there for the girls?
Oh, that is a really good question, because I grew up, I played soccer when I was younger, and I ski raced for a really long time. Like, I ski raced until my sophomore year of high school, and had kind of started, I really enjoyed both of those sports. And I think what really led me to cycling was how involved my parents were in the sport. Like, my dad, he still races a little bit. And then my mom also used to race, and my dad used to race a lot more when he was younger. So it's always been kind of a part of our family that something we've been able to do together, go out for rides and stuff. And my dad really kind of got me into bike racing. And I think it was just something about the sport and how much fun I had that made me want to keep doing it. And I probably would still be ski racing if I could. I wanted to focus on cycling, and knew I couldn't really achieve these big goals of, one day going to a world championships, if I was trying to do two sports at once. So, yeah.
Do you feel like you can cross train with those sports now, though, even though they're not a focus? Of course, you're happy to jump out and ski occasionally.
Yeah, totally. I still love to go skiing, and over the winter I'll go skiing with my friends, and do as much of that as I can in the off season.
It keeps you happy too, right? To have that balance.
Exactly.
And that's what I've been, we've been talking about with the girls, that, yes, we're all about getting girls on bikes, but I'm certainly not trying to pigeonhole you into the sport of cycling, right? Like, just be doing as many sports as you can right now. And
totally.
And if you decide to focus on cycling, that's great, but be exposed to as many different sports as possible.
I 100% agree. Awesome. I think it's so important to try everything until maybe you find something you really like, or you like just doing all the sports. And in that case, I think that's totally fine too, as long as, you have time and the energy to do it. So do any of you do any other sports? I'm sure you do, but.
Yeah. Go ahead and jump in, Emma.
Yeah.
If you unmute yourself and tell Maddie what sports you're into.
I play soccer, and I also do cross country skiing and downhill skiing.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Jennings, I see. I don't know your first name. I'm sorry, sweetie.
It's fine, but that's fine. But this winter I did a lesson of downhill skiing.
Oh, did you like it?
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Ruby and Piper?
We both ski race.
Cool. Downhill or cross country?
Downhill.
Nice.
Yeah, Maddie, we happen to be lucky in upstate New York to have a couple of smaller and large-ish ski resorts in the area. So a lot of these kiddos cross over to snow sports in the winter, which is fun.
Yeah, you guys probably are very involved in the snow sports scene. So yeah, that's awesome.
Sophia?
I do soccer and downhill skiing with my family.
Nice.
And Emma and Liddy?
We play soccer, lacrosse, we cross country ski, downhill ski, we bike, we golf.
Oh,
Wow.
nice.
Sled and swim. Swimming
Oh,
is great.
that's amazing.
And
You guys got it all.
Pretty active
Love
lifestyle.
it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And Lily?
So great.
I do cyclocross. I'm gonna start to race mountain bike.
Wow.
I downhill ski race, do lacrosse. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good for you guys. That's so great to hear. Well, yeah, just keep having fun with it too. That's what it's all about.
That's right? Riding bikes with
Yeah.
your friends and enjoying being
Exactly.
outside, right?
Yeah. And never hesitate to try a new sport too if you think it sounds fun, because you never know. It could be your new thing.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Maddie. We really, really enjoyed having you on the show. And it was on the show, but
I like
on our
it.
conversation.
Yeah.
And to be able for these girls to talk to someone who's as young as you are and as successful as you are has just been such a wonderful experience. And we
Thank
wish you
you.
all the best this college year. We wish you all the best and hopefully getting back to some racing with COVID, with being safe with COVID,
Yeah.
of course. And congratulations on your most recent trips over to Europe, and we'll be following you and encouraging you along the way. And if you're ever in New
Amazing.
York and popping by, feel free to stop by
I
and ride
will.
with us.
I would love that. Yeah.
Thank
Again, thank you guys so much for having me, and I really appreciate it. If you guys ever have any questions or you just want to talk or something, like, feel free to reach out to me. I have Instagram. I can give you my phone number or something too if you ever want that. But yeah,
Awesome.
seriously,
Thank
don't
you.
hesitate. I love talking to you guys, and it's great to see such young athletes having fun in the sport too. So
Thank you, Maddie.
yeah.
All the best and good luck with your last class
Thank
today.
you. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks, girls.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.